All right, so Mike, obviously, you're dealing with a lot of highs and lows right now with Syncrude. Just sort of take us through, I guess, from the beginning. Take us through your experience working with the oil sands company.
Well, I don't know if people are getting the idea that I hate Syncrude. I don't. It was the best job I ever had by a mile, by several miles. I started off as a heavy equipment operator after doing the course at Keano. Quickly got on the technical mine rescue team at the urging of some of the guys already on the team. It wasn't something I sought out. It turns out I was really good at it, and I really loved it. And after that, my time on the rescue team, I interacted more with the guys in the fire department on Syncrude and was kind of urged the same way to apply to the fire department. And I did, and turns out I really like that too. I'm at a point now where I can look back on it with fondness. It was an awesome job, and I'm a big supporter of Fort McMurray and the oil sands. It's given me and my family many good years.
And Mike, I think that's one of the things that you seem to be really trying to hit on is that you're not trying to attack Syncrude or the oil sands in any sense in this, right?
Yeah, that's right. I don't hate Syncrude. I don't understand what happened, but I miss my job every day. I miss my work family every day. I loved my time up there, and I wish it was still going on. I don't want to be doing any of this. I don't want to have PTSD. I don't want to have to take legal action. No offense to you, Brandon, but I don't want to be given an interview either. I just wanted to get better and do my job.
I hear you on that, Mike, and I guess that's one of the things I really want to kind of hit on is with your post-traumatic stress disorder. At the job, when did you sort of first become aware that you were suffering symptoms?
Well, I can flat out say I didn't. It's been more of a hindsight set of discoveries. When first responders, and this is just my version of what I've been through, when first responders get a cumulative case of PTSD, it kind of just sneaks up on you. It starts to erode at your life and your sleep and your patterns, and it comes on so slowly that I didn't notice it. My primary psychologist thinks I was probably 2 to 4 years symptomatic prior to even coming off work finally.
Jeez.
And it wasn't until things really tipped over the edge, and quite frankly, I was crying by an ambulance in the apparatus bay, and my captain saw that, and they knew I had broken up with my fiancée and she had left, and the initial attempt to talk to somebody through the Syncrude system wasn't very good. So I immediately, as any one of us, not just first responders, we're all cagey and tough and smart, I went right back into, I'm fine.
And it kind of just festers, right?
Well, absolutely, yeah, I'm fine
It's the worst thing you can basically tell yourself when you're dealing with that kind of situation.
Yeah, it's a really poor lid for holding that stuff in. So a few months passed, and at the urging of my ex-fiancée, I went and saw a psychologist friend of hers on days off. She was very gentle, and she talked to me for about an hour, and then she said, why don't you come and meet one of our trauma-informed clinicians, and she'll have a talk with you too. So I did, and I did hours and hours of testing for them, and even at that point, I was like, oh yeah, well, okay, the test will come back negative, and I'll just get over my whatever's bothering me. I got the phone call from my now psychologist saying I had a fairly severe case of PTSD with severe symptoms.
Well, yeah, and how did that kind of hit you at first when it kind of just sunk in?
A denial, straight denial. I was like, oh,
it can't be you.
Yeah, the first thing I said is, do I have to come off work? And she said no. She said, the weird thing about PTSD is being elevated and agitated the whole time just puts you in a state of readiness on the job. So she let I came to my own conclusion that through a conversation with her in May of 2017 that I should come off work. It wasn't helping being at work. Whatever progress we were making through weekly sessions would be undone almost instantly.
Wow.
And that's kind of when I finally put my hand up. And since I had already been through the Syncrude system, I had to do it on my own. I had to go see my doctor, get my doctor to talk to my psychologist. They came up with a plan. They wrote me off work. Then you proceed to hop through all the health and wellness requirements at Syncrude, and I did all that and went to get better, hoping that I would come back sooner than later.
And Mike, when did you when did you work at Syncrude exactly? From when and where? From when to when exactly?
January 2002, and I was officially dismissed in September of 2018.
So you worked there for a pretty significantly long time, you would say?
Oh yeah, I had no plans. I'm aware of how good my job was. I had the best job on site, and I wasn't going anywhere.
Well, it sounds like it would have been a complacent one for sure, right? I mean, over a decade and a half, right? I guess what I want to know is when you went to Syncrude with these concerns, what was their response exactly?
Well, initially in May of 2017, it was just kind of checking off the boxes. I had required paperwork from my doctor and my psychologist to go to Syncrude, and a specific amount of dates had been chosen for me to be off. So once I had that all to them, I was off, and I was concentrating on getting better and coming to grips with how truly injured and ill I was. Well, it went that from May till about October. It was status quo. I was under the direction of my primary psychologist. I was healing, and in October something changed. I was directed towards a what's called a traumatic psychological injury full-time treatment program in Calgary.
Mm-hmm.
I was having my case manager with the WCB switched. There was some miscommunication. I didn't get into the program as quickly as Syncrude wanted. I was a week late, so I could speak with my primary care psychologist, and that's when I first had my benefits and docked pay. And obviously I had a fairly big reaction from it because I had been worried so much that it would be the WCB, and everybody has lots of stories about the WCB, but my treatment from them has been pretty great.
In comparison,
Once my new case manager came on, she tried to clear it up with Syncrude. It didn't work. So I was pretty devastated by that. I felt a little bit betrayed, but priority was to get better and get back to work.
And you kind of used the word there, betrayed, 16 years at any company really, and you get a response like that. Where does that put you emotionally? What did that kind of make you feel after their response was more or less, too bad, so sad?
I think it would affect anybody. Truthfully, healthy people just the same, right? But when you have a PTSD brain and you're experiencing the hypervigilance and shame and sleeplessness and all the symptoms that come with it, I was pretty distraught. Like, it's a little tough to talk about because that was the times when suicide started to become a pretty good option, or it felt like a good option. And
yeah,
suicidal ideation for first responders, it's not really a woe is me, I'll show them type of thing. It becomes a logical exit strategy, so you're not a burden to anybody and you're not causing anybody any more pain. Or luckily, I was surrounded by psychologists and occupational therapists and a fairly good support group. So although I skirted the line very hard a couple times, I didn't cross it. So I'm aware of how thankful I am for that.
Mike, how do you feel that Syncrude is kind of how do you feel they kind of handled this personally? I mean, I know you've explained yourself well enough through this conversation that this is obviously not something a company like that should ever do to any of their employees, but how do you feel they mishandled this?
Well, I can't speak in specifics for sure. I'm left with all the questions and the curiosities. I mean, was it the wrong people in charge? I dealt with when I was off. I dealt with mostly EMTs, nurses, and doctors at Syncrude, or a doctor. Was it mental health stigmatism? We all have mental health stigmatism. I still have stigmatism towards myself, where I'm like, why can't I shake this off? I mean, at a time when I was trying to heal from a fairly severe case of PTSD, I was battling with work, or maybe battling is not the right word, but there was repeated behaviors from work that took away from my healing focus and caused suicidal ideation.
And it just doesn't get any easier.
Well, and I was always the one who ended up apologizing, and I don't think I was ever allowed to be injured and heal.
Well, you shouldn't be the one who feels bad, right? Not in that situation.
But I do. That's who I am, Brandon.
I understand.
You know,
yeah.
Yeah. And it deteriorated to the point that they put me on an unpaid leave of absence and tried to force me back to work. They basically suspended my benefits when I didn't get in the program fast enough, and then suspended them again and put me on an unpaid leave of absence when my treatment team said I needed more time in the program, to which it eventually deteriorated into them firing me.
Jeez. And when you had first heard that you were getting let go, what was the emotion then? I mean, like, that couldn't have felt good, obviously.
Don't be sorry, Brandon. Part of talking about mental health, you know, the whole Bell Let's Talk and all those raise your hand thing is talking about what happened to me and my story. So it was mourning. I lost my identity, my work family, my job, my security. I don't think is a strong enough word. I was wrecked. And
take your time, Mike.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why I got treated the way I did. As soon as anyone is diagnosed with mental illness or injury, you are covered under the Canadian or Albertan Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms as a disabled person. And there's certain criteria that there's a duty of care, I suppose. I mean, companies need to come to grips with it. If you're going to employ first responders, PTSD is now a well-known inevitability for some of us. And I don't know what's happened to me has happened, and I am looking to hold Syncrude accountable, but it isn't about me. It isn't about vengeance. It isn't about, well, screw you guys. It's about you guys mishandled, or for whatever reason we ended up in the position we are. We need to. Hopefully, we can figure something out.
Well, it just seems like it's a lack of responsibility being taken on their part, but I mean, it obviously goes a lot deeper than you or I fully can understand for whatever reason. Now, if Syncrude were to say tomorrow, come up to you, Michael, and say, hey, like, we're willing to help you out. We want to give you your job back, and we want to help you with your condition. What would you say?
Well, I don't. Like, the reason it was suggested along the healing path that I don't go back to being a first responder. Although I was never given the opportunity to fully heal, and I'm still working on that to see if I could get past my symptoms and heal back and come back to the job I loved. I wasn't given that safe space by Syncrude. So, I mean, I'd be a fool not to listen to anything, but I think I don't know if we're past that point or not. Truthfully, I'm sorry that's kind of a wishy-washy answer.
Not at all, Mike. I mean, I understand it's obviously not exactly something that you obviously want to be dealing with. Nobody wants to deal with this kind of thing, and
No.
I mean,
like I've been isolated and alienated from people I loved and worked with for years. I barely hear from them. I haven't heard from my fire chief in over a year. I haven't heard from my deputy chief in just about a year. And the culture they've set up, it's about me holding people accountable, but it's also about the culture they've set up for other first responders. Who's going to put their hand up to come forward knowing what happened to me?
well, it's almost a toxic environment, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to use those words, but you wouldn't be wrong. I mean, they've made it difficult for first responders to put their hands up when they're hurting. And I feel fairly devalued, and I've still got lots of healing to do. So I don't know if mistakes were made. Mistakes were made. I mean, I think it's always better when I'm not perfect in this. I'm just been battling with the severe mental health issue, and it's not easy. And
What would you kind of like to see come out of all this, Mike?
well, I would like to see some accountability held and retribution made for myself. I would just like the EMTs and the firefighters and the nurses that I work with to feel safe, to feel that if they do their job dutifully and they get an injury, a PTSD injury anyways, they can put up their hands and not risk losing the job.
And that they have support.
That's just not on the Syncrude side. That goes for any of the oil sands plants. It goes for our incredibly hardworking Fort McMurray Fire Department. Anybody in a first responder job positioning anywhere. When I started, which wasn't all that long ago, PTSD wasn't much of a thing. Well, it's a thing now, and we're way behind it. So I guess egoically, I want to show people that just keep putting your hand up, keep asking for help. Eventually, it has. Like, I don't know if I'm foolish in my
No, not at all, Mike.
ideology for humanity to step up and help me. Do I deserve that? No, I probably don't think I do, but I sure am out of options.
And then again, just that kind of thought process right there, where you ask yourself, "Am I worth it?" That's the exact kind of thing we're talking about here, right? Like,
Well, PTSD is a constant battle.
Yeah.
Internally, it's my psychologist told me repeatedly, you cannot trust anything that your brain comes up with. You have to take that thought and put it on trial and see if it's cognitive distortion or see if there's actually validity to it. And I'm still in the middle of it.
Well, Mike, I think I pretty much hit on all the questions that I wanted to ask you. But is there anything that I didn't ask that you wanted to share with our listeners at all?
I don't know. I haven't been up there a whole bunch since, but
You miss it up here?
I miss it up here. I would guess that a lot of the town's still hurting from the fire, and people are hurting, and I just want them to know there is help out there. Sometimes it's not easy to access, but there's people out there that will help me and you and whoever needs it. Just put up your hand.
You just got to ask, you know?
Yep.
Well, Mike, I'm sorry to take up, 25 minutes of your afternoon, but I really appreciate you being, brave enough to kind of discuss this. It's, it's a huge stigmatized issue that we're still having a lot of trouble communicating openly about these days, even to 2019, and it's probably going to be like that for a long time.
Thanks, Brandon. It's part of my story now, so not easy to share, but glad to do it.
You're a brave soul, man. I appreciate you.
Well, I need help, so if people can, go to my GoFundMe, and you're not just helping me, you're going to be helping most mental health cases.
Mike, just one last question. Your GoFundMe page, what's it called exactly?
First responder with PTSD abandoned, and it's a legal action fund.
Perfect. All right. Mike, again, thanks so much for taking the time out, man. We're going to follow up with you on this and kind of work on something to get online over the next week or so about this story, because, yeah, that hits home. And I really hope that you can figure out the situation, and I hope the Syncrude, does right by you here.
Yeah, like I said, if you or anybody's hurting up there, get help, whether that comes to me or somebody else. If people are curious, just type in Mike Swan Syncrude into any search engine and it'll pop up.